Right now, somewhere in your body, a wound is healing faster because someone loves you, or slower because no one does. That sounds impossible. It is not. Scientists have measured it. Your immune system, your heart rate, even the speed your cuts close up, all of it shifts depending on whether you feel connected to another person. But the real answer is far stranger than love feels nice. Love is not a bonus feature of being human. It is the operating system. Think about your own body for a second. You were born almost useless. No claws, no fur thick enough to survive a cold night, no legs that could carry you away from a predator. A baby zebra can stand and run within an hour of being born. A human baby cannot even lift its own head. For the first year of your life, you were completely, totally dependent on someone else choosing to keep you alive. Why would evolution design a creature that helpless? Here is the strange part. That helplessness is not a flaw. It is the whole strategy. Anthropologist Sarah Blaffer has spent decades studying this exact question. Her research points to something called cooperative breeding. Unlike most primates, where a mother raises her offspring almost entirely alone, early humans likely raised children in groups. Mothers, grandmothers, siblings, and unrelated adults all shared the labor of keeping infants alive. Hurdy argues this shared caregiving didn't just help humans survive. It built the emotional wiring inside you right now. The wiring that makes you crave connection like you crave water. Because here is the thing. If your survival as an infant depended on multiple adults choosing to invest time in you, then natural selection would favor babies who were extremely good at getting adults to love them. Big eyes, round cheeks, a cry that is almost impossible to ignore, a smile that lights up a room. These are not accidents. They are tools. Ancient tools, built over millions of years, designed to make sure someone, anon, falls in love with you before you can even speak. And it worked. It still works today. But love did not stop being useful once you learned to walk. That is where this story gets even more interesting. In the 1950s, a psychologist named Harry Harlow ran an experiment that still unsettles people today. He separated infant monkeys from their mothers and gave them two fake replacement mothers. One was made of bare wire but held a bottle of milk. The other was covered in soft cloth but offered no food at all. Which one do you think the baby monkeys chose? Almost every time, the monkeys clung to the soft cloth mother. They only left her to feed from the wire one, then rushed straight back to hold on. Food kept them alive. But comfort, touch, warmth, that is what they needed to feel safe. Harlow's experiment shattered a popular belief at the time, the idea that love was just a side effect of feeding. It is not. Love is its own biological need, as real as hunger, as real as thirst. A few years later, a psychiatrist named John Bowlby took this idea further and built what we now call attachment theory. Bowlby argued that human infants are born with a built-in drive to stay physically close to a caregiver, not because it feels nice, but because throughout almost all of human history, distance from a caregiver meant death. A baby left alone on the savannah 100,000 years ago did not get a second chance, so evolution built panic into you. Real, chemical panic that triggers the instant you feel disconnected from the people who protect you. That panic never fully switched off. It just changed shape. Fast forward from infancy to adulthood, and the wiring is still running in the background. Neuroscientist and psychologist Jim Cohn studies what happens inside the brain when people face something threatening, like the possibility of pain. In his research, when a person faces a threat completely alone, their brain lights up in regions associated with fear and stress. But when that same person holds the hand of someone they trust, even a stranger, sometimes even just a friend, that threat response calms down. The brain, in a very real sense, treats a trusted person's presence as if it lowers the actual cost of danger. Cohn calls this social baseline theory. In simple terms, your brain assumes it does not have to handle threats alone. It expects backup. When that backup disappears, your nervous system has to work harder just to feel safe in an ordinary day. This is why loneliness does not just feel bad. It costs you, physically. Researchers have found that chronic loneliness is associated with inflammation, higher blood pressure, weakened immune response, and increased risk of early death, comparable in some studies to smoking several cigarettes a day. Your body was never designed to run this long without connection. For most of human history, being cut off from your group did not just feel painful. It was often a death sentence. Predators picked off the isolated. Resources went to those inside the group. So your brain built pain into isolation itself, the same kind of pain signal it uses for physical injury. Loneliness and a broken bone are processed, in part, by overlapping regions of your brain. Now, here is the twist most people never think about. Romantic love follows the exact same ancient blueprint. Anthropologist Helen Fisher has spent her career scanning the brains of people newly in love, and what she found looks almost identical to addiction. Dopamine floods the brain's reward pathways. Focus narrows onto one person. Cravings appear. Fisher argues romantic love evolved as a survival mechanism of its own, a way to keep two humans focused on each other long enough to raise a child through those brutally dependent early years. Lust gets two people together. Attachment keeps them together. Romantic love is the bridge between the two, strong enough to override logic, because logic was never fast enough to keep a species alive. Feeling had to do the job instead. So when you crave a text back, when silence from someone you love feels unbearable, when a breakup hurts so much, it feels physical. It does, because your ancestors' survival machinery is still running inside you, still convinced that losing connection means losing protection, resources, even life itself. Think about what actually happens in your body during a breakup. Not metaphorically. Literally. Researchers using brain imaging have found that the same regions activated by physical pain, the anterior cingulate cortex among them, light up when someone looks at a photo of an ex-partner shortly after a painful separation. Your brain does not have a separate filing system for emotional pain and physical pain. It uses overlapping circuitry. That is why people reach for the same words in both situations. A broken heart. It hurts. Something is missing. These are not just figures of speech. They are your nervous system reporting an injury the only way it knows how. And this helps explain something that used to puzzle researchers. Why does heartbreak sometimes feel worse than an actual physical wound? A sprained ankle heals in 6 weeks. A breakup can echo for months. One reason may be that heartbreak carries an added layer most physical injuries do not: uncertainty. A sprained ankle has a clear timeline. A lost relationship does not. Your brain keeps searching for the person, keeps predicting their return, keeps firing the same reward circuits Helen Fisher documented, except now with nothing on the other end. It is like a phantom limb, except the limb was another person. Grief itself may be one of the clearest signs of how deeply love is wired into survival. Researchers have documented mourning-like behavior, not just in humans, but in elephants, chimpanzees, and even some corvids, animals that also form long-term social bonds. When a bond that ran deep enough to matter for survival is severed, something in the brain registers it as catastrophic, whether the species involved has language for it or not. Humans just happen to be the species that writes songs about it. Now zoom out even further. Because if love is a survival tool built by evolution, it should show up everywhere humans have ever lived, not just in romantic partnerships. And it does. Studies of hunter-gatherer societies, from groups in Tanzania to the Kalahari, consistently describe extended, overlapping networks of caregiving and emotional bonding, not just between parents and children, but across entire bands of people. Shared caregiving, communal food sharing, sleeping arrangements built around proximity, not privacy. These were not cultural luxuries. In resource-scarce, predator-heavy environments, groups with tighter social bonds likely outcompeted groups that did not invest as heavily in each other. Selection was not just working on individual bodies, it was working on relationships themselves. That is a strange thing to sit with. Evolution usually gets described as a story about individual survival, the strongest, the fastest, the fittest. But for a species this fragile, this slow to mature, this dependent on cooperation, the unit that had to survive was never really the individual. It was the bond itself. Which brings us back to you, right now, in a century so different from the one your instincts were built for. You do not live on an open plain. You do not sleep next to a fire, surrounded by relatives who share the responsibility of keeping you alive. Many people today live alone, work alone, scroll alone late into the night. And your ancient wiring does not know the difference between modern isolation and the deadly isolation your ancestors feared. It sends the same alarm either way. This might be part of why modern loneliness feels so uniquely disorienting. It is not simply sadness. It is a threat signal from a very old part of your brain, firing in a world it was never designed to interpret. A world of glowing screens instead of firelight. A world where connection is technically one tap away, yet somehow still out of reach for so many people. But the same system that causes that ache is also the system capable of healing it. Jim Cohn's research on social baseline theory did not just find that isolation raises threat responses. It found that connection, even brief, even simple, physically lowers them. A hand held, a voice heard, a message that says someone is thinking of you. These are not small gestures. To the ancient machinery running underneath your conscious mind, they read as safety, as backup arriving, as proof that you are not facing the world's dangers alone. You were never built to be self-sufficient. No human was. Every tool you have ever used, every language you speak, every idea in your head was passed to you by someone else. Cooperation, not strength, is the actual superpower that let this fragile, clawless, slow, weak species take over the entire planet. And the emotional glue that made cooperation possible, generation after generation, was love. Not a poetic idea of love, a biological one, older than agriculture, older than language, maybe older than fire. So the next time you feel that pull toward someone, that ache when they're gone, that flood of relief when they walk back through the door, know what you are actually feeling. Not weakness, not neediness. You are feeling the same ancient current that kept a helpless, half-formed infant alive on an open plain 100,000 years ago. Right now, somewhere in your body, a wound is healing, faster or slower, because of the people who choose to stay close to you.